The season is upon us. They say the time for talk is over, but we can't help ourselves. Here is Locked On Panthers host Julian Council. Julian, thanks for joining me once again. And once again, as we do before every season, we're going to see what you're buying and selling with this 2025 Panthers football team. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
We start with the most important guy on the field, quarterback Bryce Young. We all saw the finish he had to last season. He became one of the better passers in the league over that stretch.
Right.
Will Bryce Young be a top 16, so top half, quarterback in the NFL this whole season in terms of passer rating? Are you buying that or selling that?
Unfortunately, Nick, I'm going to have to sell this one. And this is not me saying I don't believe that Bryce Young can carry over the second half of the season into the entirety of 2025. I'm just going back and looking at the stats from last year from weeks 8 to 18. Going to Pro Football Focus, he was 20th in the league in passer rating. That's when he was playing well. If you want to ignore the first game he came back against Denver and go weeks 9 through 18, he was 19. So I think he'll improve. I'm not confident enough to say that he'll improve passer rating-wise enough to be in the top 16 in the league this year. So, yeah, I'm going to have to sell this one, even though I still have belief in Bryce Young's future here in Carolina.
All right, so it is a huge year for Bryce Young. It is year 3. Some quarterbacks are lucky enough to get that fifth-year option picked up or even get a long-term extension in the middle of that season. So are you buying or selling that Bryce will get extended in the middle of the 2025 season?
I'm going to sell that he gets extended in the middle of the season, but I will certainly buy him getting the fifth-year option once we get to April or early May in 2026. And you've looked at the last couple of years, guys who have been first-round picks. I know that Bryce came into a different regime, but Dan Morgan was the assistant general manager at the time, and now he's here as the GM. Dave Canales, we saw how he had some trust in Bryce in the second half of the season. I do think that Carolina would like to see more than just this season of Bryce Young in this system with these young receivers now that Adam Thielen is no longer around. So I'm going to sell the idea of him getting extended midseason and buy him getting the fifth-year option, much like they did with Ike Ekwonu this past offseason and then J.C. Horn and Derek Brown the years prior.
What would it take for you to say, okay, Dan Morgan, go ahead and give him the bag in the middle of the season and extend him like, a Mahomes or an Allen, maybe after the season too?
Well, there you go. He's going to have to perform like a Mahomes or an Allen. That's what it would take for me to be all in. I think also for Carolina to be all in. And Brant Tillis, who is their executive vice president of football operations, who handles salary caps and contracts, was a part of that Mahomes deal where he came from in Kansas City. He even told us back in the spring, they're not there yet with Bryce. But if Bryce has the Mahomes, Allen, Burrow star turn, then, go ahead and get that deal as soon as possible.
All right, outside of Bryce on offense, Panthers have a 1,000-yard back returning in Chuba Hubbard. They add a 1,000-yard back from Dallas, Enrico Dowdle. So given all that, are you buying or selling the Panthers will be a top half of the league rushing team based on yards per game?
Oh, I'm buying this. I look back at last year, they were only 18th in yards per game, which was surprising considering how well Chuba Hubbard ran the football a year ago and that the offensive line was consistent, didn't have a ton of injuries, and it was so much better than it was the year prior. But I think that this year, maybe Dave Canales won't exactly be stubborn about running the football, but he has more options in Chuba Hubbard coming back. And I think even with the addition of Rico Dowdle, he'll still be the top tier back in Carolina, but you want to get some of the pressure off of him with Rico coming off at that 1,000-yard rushing season last year in Dallas. And let's not forget about the rookie, Trevor Etienne. I think he'll be a part of that rushing attack as well. So I do think this will be a top half of the NFL rushing team as far as yards per game goes.
That defense has got to be fixed. Getting after the quarterback has got to be a priority. They went out and they picked 2 first-team All-SEC edge rushers in the draft. So will Nick Scorton and Princely Umanmielen combine for 12 sacks, which, by the way, is Julius Pepper's franchise record for a rookie? Can the two of them put that season together?
I think they're both wildly talented, and that's the conference, the SEC, where you would want to find some edge rushers. And I think that Scorton and Umanmielen have bright futures here in Carolina. But unfortunately, I'm going to sell this. I go back to last season, and I look at what Jared Verse, who came out of Florida State, first-round pick, what he did with the Rams and helping that defense turn things around and get to the divisional round. He only had 4.5 sacks. So Jared Verse, what I personally believe, was a better player than both Scorton and Umanmielen during their collegiate careers when he was at Florida State, and then those other two were at A&M/Purdue, Florida, /Ole Miss, respectively. I think that Verse not having the kind of crazy numbers as a rookie, I think that's what you should expect from these guys. So they can get to 4 or 5 apiece. And you have to understand, too, like Patrick Jones II was brought in here to help out with the pass rush. They're bringing back TJ Warren, who's fully healthy going into the year. They're maybe not going to have the amount of opportunities they would have had it just been those two being the starters. So I'm going to sell that, but I still think that that's going to be a good duo moving forward here in Carolina.
Panthers surprised most of the football-watching world by going with a wide receiver, going offense in the first round of the draft. They pick up Tetairoa McMillan, tall, lanky, big catch radius. Guy many think can have 1,000-yard seasons for years to come.
Sure.
Kelvin Benjamin's franchise rookie record for a single season is 1,008 yards. Are you buying or selling? T-Mac will pick that up in year one.
If he breaks that record, I do think things will go wildly differently for him long-term here than worked out for Kelvin Benjamin. Unfortunately, I'm going to sell this one. And even with the departure of Adam Thielen, I think that there's going to be a lot to go around as far as trying to get guys involved in this offense, which is a good thing. You look at guys like Rome Odunze in Chicago last year, Marvin Harrison Jr. in Arizona, and then Malik Neighbors in New York. I think that McMillan is on that tier entering the league as those guys when you look back at where they were drafted in the top 10 and also how they performed back in college statistically, where a lot of those categories like receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns, he was better than a lot of those guys. But there's a lot to go around with the football here in Carolina.
Dave Canales preaches the ball, the ball, the ball. It's the most important thing to him, and he wants it to be the most important thing to this team. Turnover differential, just a key stat in all of football. And the Panthers were -5 in takeaways in 2024. So you buying or selling that this Panthers team will finish with a plus turnover differential in 2025?
I'm going to sell this one. I don't believe that the defense is going to be able to knock the ball out as much as you would like. Maybe they're going to be trying to punch it. But as far as like confusing quarterbacks enough and being in position to get those takeaways, I think a lot of that has to come with not just the scheme, but also the ability to get after the passer. When I look at the edge rushing group that they have right now, I'm still not a believer this year in that being something that takes a major step forward. I like what they're bringing in Gordon and Uman-Mielen, but I just sold the idea of those guys combining for 12 sacks this season. Patrick Jones is probably more here to be someone who can help out the run, but he was impressive throughout training camp in the preseason as a pass rusher. And then we'll see what he's able to do fully healthy this year. I just don't think they're going to get enough pressure, and pressure leads to turnovers for them to be able to take that step forward and have a positive turnover differential this season.
Julian, 31.4 points per game allowed.
Don't remind me.
This defense last year.
Don't remind me.
The reminder needs to happen. So we think it's improved on paper.
Yeah.
Will this Carolina Panthers defense, under coordinator Ejiro Evero, back for another season, allow under 25 points per game? Is that too much to ask you to buy? Because that would be, it'd be a bottom 10 defense, but it wouldn't be the worst. You buying or selling that?
It would be also a touchdown better. And I do think that this defense can be a touchdown better than it was last year because they have Derek Brown back. J.C. Horn's coming back fully healthy yet again. And I like some of the veteran additions that they made on the defensive line in Turk Wharton and in Bobby Brown III. But with that being said, I'm going to have to sell this.
I knew there'd be a but.
I don't think they're going to take that big of a step forward from being historically the worst scoring defense in the history of the National Football League to all of a sudden not still being a bottom 10 defense. And I don't think it's necessarily the scheme or just overall talent, but I just think there's a lot that has to go into it. There's plenty of youth there, not a lot of depth. If something, God forbid, happens to J.C. Horn, they're in trouble there at corner. Anything happens to either Christian Roseboom or Trevin Wallace, they're in trouble there at linebacker. Safety, not a ton of experience behind Trevon Merrick. Nick Scott has had his moments, but certainly they're not great spots depth-wise. And this is a long, brutal season. It's a war of attrition in football and in the NFL in particular. I think they'll be better. Absolutely. I think being a touchdown better is something that you should be excited for if you were a Panthers fan. But them holding teams to under 25 points per game this year, I don't think they're going to quite get there. If they can hold them to 25.4, again, that's a touchdown better. Be happy with that because it's can't be as bad as it was last year. So I would think it can't possibly be as bad as it was last year.
Panthers fans right now, they're not asking for much. They're asking, in December when they're cozied up on the couch, bowl of popcorn, ready to watch football, and they see that in the hunt graphic for the playoffs, that Carolina is still in that graphic and is still in the hunt for the playoffs. So you see what I did here? In the hunt, there's Rob Hunt.
Hey.
Are you buying or selling? The Panthers will be in the hunt past the bye week, which is late. It's week 14.
A lot of times when you see that graphic, you see teams that are like 5-9.
And they're still in the hunt.
And they're in the hunt. So, I mean, Carolina, I'm trying to do the math, 5-9, like they could be in the hunt. And, well, I guess they would, yeah. They could be in the hunt and be like a 6-7 team at that point in time, which certainly you would think. So I will buy this because I can buy that on Sunday Night Football here on WCNC at some point in December, they will have the Panthers on that graphic because I don't think this is going to be a team that stays right there at that 5-win mark this upcoming season. I do think that they will make the improvements on both sides of the ball, that they have made the improvements on both sides of the ball to where they can get a lot closer to no longer 500, but to that 8-9 if things really go well, mark this upcoming season, and that will then have them in the hunt. And also understand, I mean, this is the NFC South. So there's going to be a possibility there. And also just the NFC as a whole. Like the NFC North, a really talented division, will be competitive. Detroit, Minnesota again, and then Green Bay. Out west, I really like the Rams this season. We'll see with Seattle, Sam Darnold being their quarterback. Then the NFC East, Washington, Philadelphia, Dallas, we'll see what they do. I do think there's a possibility, even with the wild card, for them to be in the hunt. And again, that graphic gives a lot of people the opportunity. So I can buy that for sure.
We'll talk about another young defensive player that this team wants to count on in the future.
Yeah.
Fourth round, they got safety Lathan Ransom from Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. He had an interesting camp. He laid some big hits. He had an interception against the Steelers. He missed a tackle against the Steelers. A lot of people really excited about him. Nick Scott currently occupies that starting spot. Are you buying or selling that Lathan Ransom will start games based on merit, not injury in 2025?
I'm just going to sell this because I think that if it's not going to be Nick Scott, I think Damani Richardson will be the guy. And it's possible they come out in a 3 safety look at some point in time, so certainly he could. But if we're just looking at who's going to be primarily the starter next to Trevon Merrick, like it could happen. But I think that Richardson would be the guy to really step up with that next opportunity. And I found it very curious throughout the preseason and really in training camp as well that Nick Scott consistently was able to get those first-team reps out there with Trevon Merrick. Then the final game against Pittsburgh, where you mentioned Ransom had a nice interception there of Rock Hill native Mason Rudolph. I think he's an impressive player. I think he's somebody who can help them out. I just think that early on, they're going to really want to just bring him along slowly, give Scott those reps, and then I think it would be Damani Richardson, who was impressive as a rookie last year, undrafted at A&M, who would step into that role before Ransom. I think maybe next year could really be one of those starting guys.